Yes, yes, now. Good morning. This is a meeting of the Wareham Affordable Housing Trust. And it is March 11th, 2025. It is 9:05 a.m., 9:03 a.m. Present are Sandy Slavin, Judith Whiteside, Jim Manise, and Carl Schultz is our other member who is online. Can you hear us, Carl?
Maybe if they're your own ones. There you go.
Hello, Carl. Can you hear us? He's muted.
Carl, you're muted.
Oh, there it is. I gotta find the right button. There we go.
Okay, Carl Schultz is on Zoom. Thank you. Would you be taking the minutes, or would be Sandy, or how would you like to do it?
I'll take care of the minutes. It's being recorded, so
Thank you.
I'll be fine.
Thank you. All right, so we did our roll call. Minutes to approve of February 11th, 2025. Carl sent them out last night. I don't know if the board had the opportunity to review them.
I have not had a chance to
I have not had a
review.
chance.
Okay.
I would recommend that we pass over and take this up next meeting.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll pass over. Draft minutes are available. Thank you, Carl, for getting it done. I did review them. Couple scribblers, but beyond that, look good. Thank you. We'll do that next time.
So Jim, if there were Scrivener errors, just send me a little email.
Oh, that's, I will do that. I always do that. Okay, for new business, we have a guest, Mr. Michael Gagne. He's talking about a regional housing approach. So, Mr. Gagne.
Can I take a seat?
You can have a seat, and you can sit over here, over there. I don't know, can you see him here?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I can see everybody in the room.
Good, thank you.
Jim, ask him to spell his name for the record, please.
My name is Michael Gagne. Last name is spelled Gagne.
And he's here,
Mike, is it possible you could sit down so that Carl may see you and you can see Carl? Because right now you have his, and Carl, it must be great to have Denise home.
Yes. She came home Friday and she's resting, and
Wow,
hopefully we're on the mend, or as much as we can be.
what a journey.
Yes.
Okay.
okay, so if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Little background. I currently am retired. I do a little bit of consulting work for the city of New Bedford on new airport terminal. But other than that, I currently serve as president of a nonprofit group called Partners in Housing. We were submitted to the IRS, and we have a 501c3 with the IRS. The group, Partners in Housing, I'll tell you a little bit about them. And first of all, my sort of background is that I worked for the town of Dartmouth for 28 years. I was town administrator there for 24 of the 28 years. And then I moved on to the town of Mattapoisett, where I was town administrator there for 12 years. And then finishing up, I was 2.5 years with the city of New Bedford as their interim chief financial officer. Other than that, that's part of my career. I've had about 42 or so years in public local government. One of the things while I was still working was we formed the group Partners in Housing for the purposes of being a nonprofit entity that could assist the Dartmouth Housing Authority in acquisition of certain funding that they could not get because of their quasi-governmental position. Our very first project, which we did about 7 years ago, was the conversion of the former Dartmouth State Police Barracks on Route 6, not far from the mall. We converted that into 11 units of veterans housing, all affordable units. They're governed and management by the Dartmouth Housing Authority. And was our very successful first project. Our second project, which is actually under construction at present, is a project for 10 units of housing, all affordable, called the Mendes Montero House. That particular project has 4 units that are congregate living style, and 6 of them are individual units. All of the units in the project are handicap accessible. That was a joint partnership between the Dartmouth Housing Authority and the Massachusetts Department of Mental Health. Specifically, those units are for senior adults who have both physical and mental health challenges. That partnership is actually, that project has on staff 24/7 when it is completed, representation from the Mass Department of Public Mental Health. That project was challenging from a number of different perspectives. That project had, and I'll share with you some of my notes. I'll leave them so that your chairperson can copy them and share them. That project took almost 5 years to pull together all the financing. The financing came, this sheet says 12 because it's an older letter, but actually came from 13 different sources. And I have in my years in local government, I certainly have had my challenges with funding and organization of funding for public works projects, road projects and things. But this really tested our abilities. We're very fortunate that we originally got a community preservation grant, which enabled us to hire a woman who had been a housing authority director her whole career and had done a number of new construction projects. And she's actually engaged and basically does all the ministerial work associated with this project. The project is actually under construction. If you want to see it sometime, it's located on Anderson Way, which is on Route 6. It's a street that leads to the Housing Authority, directly across from the Burger King on Route 6 in Dartmouth, where Hathaway Road intersects with Route 6, and you can see that project. I didn't have a chance to bring a rendering of it to show you, but all the units are on a single floor level. There are no elevators involved, and it was actually done on property that was held by the Dartmouth Housing Authority. The title to the property, it's presently in a lease format to Partners in Housing, but in long term, it'll be property that will revert to the Housing Authority as the sole authority of ownership. That project is exciting, but if anything, what it did was it opened my eyes to the issue that we're presented with sort of a very interesting situation in that if it is this difficult for people who are experienced in housing projects to pull together financing, and it takes, 4 years to pull together, that maybe we ought to look at the issue of how we would meet the challenge. And because I'll be very honest with you, as a town administrator, being in a very big town and then being in a smaller town, all the things that the town administrator has to do, the type of dedication and commitment this kind of stuff requires will not enable you, the town administrator, to give it its total due diligence. It's just, I think it's well beyond what they have for capacity. They certainly can participate, they can be a positive force, but I think it's beyond what they can do along with all the other work that they're given as administrators. So what I did is, while I worked in the city of New Bedford, Mayor John Mitchell put out the city's affordable housing plan, which was about a year and a half ago. And very interesting plan. If you've had an opportunity to attend the forum that was hosted by the New Bedford Light, you can understand that there are a significant number of different housing challenges for both the city of New Bedford and for towns. And there needs to be a collaboration of efforts. So there's a young man who used to be the head of the PACE program in New Bedford that Mayor Mitchell appointed as the director of housing and community development. His name is Josh Amaral. And in the plan, it specifically calls out that the city of New Bedford will provide technical resources to surrounding communities for the purposes of promoting regional housing. Having heard this, and I heard it repeated at the forum held by the New Bedford Light, I took them up on the offer, and I've met with Josh Amaral a couple of times, and I shared with him the idea of putting together a collaborative for southeastern Massachusetts for the purposes of combining resources, ideas, and basically exchanges on how we can work as a region to promote affordable housing for all of the different clientele that are needed and in need of that kind of housing. So that's how I sort of got to the issue of the collaborative. And I've had probably maybe a little less than half of the communities have responded to my memo that I've sent out that they're interested in meeting. We've got the okay that the city of New Bedford has the facilities that they would host the meetings. We're looking to set up our first meeting in April. And that way we can start to have further discussion.
Excuse me.
And that's sort of where we're at. One of the things that I will share with you, and you should be aware of, and I'll give you some information on it. There's a particular project in Dartmouth that is considering potential use for a vacant public building owned by the town. And that's the program called under Mass Development Real Estate Services Technical Assistance. I was put in touch with them, and I'll give you a copy of their sort of prospectus on what they offer. And I've had some conversations with them, and they're really excited about the idea of the collaborative. The folks at Mass Housing Partnership have reached out to me. They've reached out to Serped, and things seem to be falling together that we're going to get some technical assistance. But if you've got some particular project, in Wareham, you might want to consider asking your select board to submit a letter of interest. I've specifically, on behalf of this group in Dartmouth, have asked the Dartmouth Select Board to submit a letter of interest because I would like to see them apply for those funds. City of New Bedford has gotten those funds for, I think, 4 different projects, both public and private partnership projects.
What funds are you talking about?
It's called the Mass Development Real Estate Services Technical Assistance. Goes by the acronym Mass Development, RES.
Okay, and that's through,
That is through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
okay.
And
the town would have to apply for that?
well, I don't necessarily think they have to, the town, but certainly I think it improves the chances dramatically. And that's just for the letter of interest. Because right now they're accepting letters of interest, and they'll tell you, yeah, that's one that we think we can do something with. And then I think it's late May, you then file the paperwork to get the actual
Okay.
assistance.
Michael, could I ask you to
Wait,
repeat
One
that?
second,
Sure.
all right, repeat that, and then Carl had a question.
Sure. So the program is called Mass Development,
Listen, Judy.
and it's under the category of Real Estate Services Technical Assistance. And they're an entity that will give you money for the purposes of evaluating and going through the financials of what you may have for an affordable housing idea, location. We're going to actually hopefully with the selectmen's approval, which would be to analyze a vacant police station again. Actually, the second time we'll have a police station, that potentially it's been evaluated for about 12 units of all affordable housing if it's done, as a public project. If it's in a private public partnership, it could be less. But they go through all the numbers, they go through the site evaluations, the development costs, which gives, in this case, the select board some idea of maybe it's an option that they should consider for the future use of that station, but it gets some tangible numbers up on the table. And I'll go to Carl for his question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it was back to your offer to host the regional collaborative in Bedford. And my request is going to be, should our trust decide to join, would to request that you offer remote access capabilities if possible. Only because my ability to travel and I would like to participate
Sure.
is limited for the foreseeable future.
So what we'll do is in the April meeting, when we set it up, is we'll talk about the logistics, because there are, for the issue of time and travel and issues like that, there may be some benefit to doing it on Teams or on Zoom.
Thank you. That was just my request. And the trust has to decide if we want to participate, but.
Sure.
Okay, so Sandy, do you have any?
I just wanted, Judy left the room to do me a favor, and when I was talking about the selectmen sending a letter, I wanted her to hear it since she's on the select board,
Okay,
and he did that.
and that letter was for,
The letter would go to this organization,
right,
and you can have that copy there. You can scan it and.
yeah, right, and that's for the town to inquire with mass development.
Right,
If-
that's correct.
For technical assistance for projects.
Yep.
Which has been ongoing for a number of years.
There are a
Technical
couple
assistance
of,
projects.
there are a couple of projects I'm aware of in New Bedford that originally got the money through mass development to go through the numbers. And they're very interested in doing something regionally. I think one of the things that I've sort of learned through the years being involved in Partners in Housing and the stuff that's been going on in the city of New Bedford, which you've all read about, is that we as communities, based upon being a town, big or small, we can all offer different things. What can be offered in Dartmouth because of the amount of land that we have and availability to utilities may be different than what can be offered in New Bedford, which is a more urbanized area. So there could be, with a regional approach, there could be a benefit for both entities. So that's why we thought about the collaborative.
So if I may, well, how does the regional approach work to benefit a town of Wareham or Fairhaven? I mean, we looking at counts on affordable housing? Are we looking at just a way to seek assistance similar to the Mass Housing Partnership, or what benefits and what would be provided?
Well, one of the big benefits, and you hear this in projects that have been endorsed in New Bedford, is the issue of what we experience with the Mendes Montero House, and that is the whole issue of pulling together the sources of funding. Mendes Montero's project, that project here started with planning and funding prior to the pandemic, and then had to continue after the pandemic, so a very short hiatus. But that project, when we put that project out to bid, that project cost $7.1 million.
How many units?
It's 10 units. And prior to the pandemic, it was about 30% less than that. And I mean, you all know the reasons, why in fact it escalated. But I think communities, if what I'm hearing is that if they wanna work with their housing authorities and get more affordable housing, all of it 100%, affordable, that somebody has to work together to sort of share the ideas of where they went to, where they got the money, how they got the money, who they applied to, who they spoke to. In other words, what we had for experience in where our money, our funds came from, could be important to, let's say, the community of Wareham, who maybe can get some money from CPC, but they don't know where they're gonna get the rest of the money. So the group itself can come together and say, hey, we went to, there's a good example, we went to DHCD, we got $500,000 from we got $1 million from the National Housing Trust Fund. A lot of communities don't even have an idea what the National Housing Trust Fund is. So basically it's to get together, to pull together the mechanics of how you can make an idea of financial reality. And I'll tell you, that's challenging. If I've learned anything, and the amount of paperwork as president that I had to go through and I had to sign and everything, there is no way. I mean, we're extremely fortunate. We had a housing director that was very familiar with these programs, and we had a lot of talk with a lot of entities. You take a community like Mattapoisett, and I have had conversations with the town administrator there. They want to do something in partnership with the Mattapoisett Housing Authority. But how do they even start? So we think, especially with the mayor's office, to make their Office of Housing Development, Josh Amaral, available to this group. There's one asset. And we received a call that the folks at Mass Housing Partnership are reaching out to Serpent, that there's a gentleman at Serpent who has a lot of experience with housing issues, and potentially they could help us so that we get all the minds together and we can talk about, well, where does something stand in Wareham? Where does it stand in Marion and Mattapoisett and Dartmouth? How far along are you? What are you doing? Basically talking it out.
Any other questions?
I just have a couple of questions. What percentage are you at your SHI for the city
It's
of New Bedford?
for the city of New Bedford, they're fairly high. I would say with, I know it's probably in the range of 7 or more percent. I gotta confirm that, but I can tell you the number in Dartmouth has actually gone down, because the number in Dartmouth went down when some units that were subsidized came off the list.
Yep.
And they didn't do a buy down or additional extension on that. So it's come down. Now, some of the 40B projects in Dartmouth have brought the numbers a little bit better. But the problem, I'll be very honest with you, is those 40B units and what they consider affordable. Looking at the census tract for 2020 for Dartmouth, the number of seniors living at or below the poverty level has increased.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry to say it, but those units aren't affordable to seniors that are living on, let's say, just a Social Security income. They're not affordable. They are affordable to people that need them, and they get rented up very well. But that's good. But that fills a niche there, but it doesn't fill a niche that. I mean, other than our 2 projects, Mendes Montero and the Assistant Connor Home, there have not been any affordable units, all affordable units built in Dartmouth. And I think, there's a fair amount of other towns that don't have any, or, still with projects that were done 20, 30 years ago.
So Mendes Montero is Dartmouth?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you took the old state police thing, the old White House on Route 6, and you turned that into how many units?
That is 11 units,
And they're
It's
all,
11 units. Huh?
all affordable. Both are all affordable.
They're under the Dartmouth Housing, right?
That's correct.
Authority.
Yep.
And they own the land where you're doing the
Right.
project now?
Yep.
Okay, so you work in collaboration with the housing authority?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I worked as a senior loan officer in New Bedford for 23 years at the Shawmut Bank, which became whatever was,
Right.
First National Bank of New Bedford. So I'm very familiar with that area. Where's the new terminal going? Totally over. The airport terminal, you said a
Oh.
new terminal?
The building that's there will be replaced.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was built in the 1950s.
And in terms of New Bedford's SHI, you have an enormous amount of real estate in the north end that's vacant real estate. So if the city really wanted to engage,
Mhm.
it has rail there. It's got the airport right there. It's, to me, that is an opportunity that the
Sure.
city should be taking
Right.
real advantage of.
Just so you know,
Sorry.
no, that's good. There's two representatives here, are doing a 6-unit and a 7-unit, is it? Totally affordable projects
Good.
here in Wareham. So
But we're private, not public.
Uh-huh.
So are you exclusively
That's
looking?
okay.
Our partners in housing is all private.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
you
Do you mind?
may,
Are you, as looking for a regional or setting up a regional program, are you looking, are towns going to kind of buy in or pay for a certain amount of hours of expertise? Or how would that work?
But right now, what we're looking at is the sharing of ideas and assisting each other. No real issue of any kind of buy-in. We would be strictly, as I said, a sharing of resources, ideas, and suggestions.
Awesome. Thank you.
Just, we belong to Serpent. We have a member who's been there for 1,000,000 years. 500,000 years. And
I know them well.
yeah, and so we're very familiar with the programs that Serpent has offered. And we also, through our planning department, use the one-stop program already.
Good.
And we've gotten some fairly hefty grants, and we have a pretty good working relationship through there. So I'm not exactly sure what additional benefit joining this would bring to the table. I don't mean, I'm just saying, we already have some pretty good tentacles out there.
I mean, as far as,
Yes, as far as this, yeah.
um,
That's just a comment.
no,
Yeah.
that's good. So,
And these are open, your meetings are open to private.
Sure, it would certainly be, organizations that are interested, absolutely.
so if you could let us know when the meeting will be.
Sure.
You said sometime in April, maybe?
Yeah.
We'll have another meeting the first week of April. We can think about it, discuss it, and see what we can do. I mean, it makes sense to get together and talk about how to meet your goals, the end of your goals there, and financing, big. And you were saying, I don't know how many 40Bs are trying to be developed in New Bedford or Dartmouth.
Quite a few in Dartmouth. I spoke with, some of the town officials, and there are a good number of them that have been approved under 40B, but one of the issues that Dartmouth is grappling with is additional plant capacity, wastewater plant capacity.
Either that, they do their own.
One of the big projects will need a substantial amount of that. So there's a secondary sort of issue that could be a limiting factor, but there are quite a few in consideration.
Right, or they could do their own on-site
Package.
treatment.
I just, as a sewer commissioner, it's my knowledge, never mind, that a 40B must be given sewer capacity, even if the sewer plant doesn't have it. I've heard that several times,
I can't answer
that we cannot deny a 40B sewer hookup.
I'm not familiar with that
I don't-
provision.
So we'll talk about it. It's interesting. And I did go online, look at some of your projects and where they were located, and you worked very closely with the Dartmouth Housing Authority and their
Yes.
administrator to process.
The
things like
Housing
you said.
Authority has actually been very good. They have representatives on partners in housing. That you know, in meeting with them, you get the sense that they would be willing to do what they need to do and, you know, help out
Yeah.
to build additional units. So I think partnerships with housing authorities, certainly for our situation in Dartmouth, has been very beneficial.
And you mentioned Mass Housing Partnership.
Yep.
We had Katie, what was her last name? Here last week, and I actually, go ahead.
Lacey.
Very
Yes.
good.
I spoke with
Thank
her
you.
last week.
Well, I sent her your letter because she asked us to forward it.
Okay,
And so I forwarded it to her last week.
good.
So I'm glad she got in touch
Oh,
with us.
she
She was
got-
interested.
Must have been right away because I spoke to her early last week. She's actually reaching out to a couple of entities that could be helpful to the collaborative.
Very good, and thank you. Any other questions?
I'm gonna give you a copy of the letter that we sent Governor Healy, which I think could be helpful because it identifies the sources and the amounts we got from funding that,
Okay, I'll send this around. I'll forward
and
and
actually
send it.
that, just as you sort of know, that letter actually did have a positive result. When we revised our preliminary, our final project estimates, we were about $700,000 short because of escalating prices for materials. And that letter produced that additional $700,000 that we needed to put us over the top and put the shovel in the
Very good.
ground.
You know, I think having a lot of expertise sitting at a table discussing processes and ways to meet your ends would be helpful. But
Good,
thank you, Michael.
all right, great, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you folks.
It's very concerning that if it's not, can't be affordable in Dartmouth, what are they gonna do in Wareham in a Boston market? Will never be affordable for anybody. If Dartmouth can't even, their residents can't take care of the affordability there.
And just as an observation, I can tell you that the whole issue of affordable housing has come up to a bigger and a lot more thought-provoking level. And I'm more optimistic than I was a couple of years ago. When you see, and I don't know if the New Bedford Light put their forum online, you might want to check with them, but there were well over 100 people at that forum at the public library in New Bedford. And hearing from all of the different organizations, you just get the sense that there's a ton of energy there that wants to go to work towards this for various needs and groups. It just has to come together and hopefully get funds where we can, you know, from these entities. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
In order to move things along,
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
I'm gonna jump to open items, continuing business, so we can have Ms. Perkins and Mr. Boschman update us on their projects. And that way, we can just, you know, if you have things to do, you can do them, and you too.
I have a 10:15 dead stop.
All right, don't worry.
We'll be
I'd
there.
like to.
Thanks.
All right, so why don't you go first, Nanette?
Sure, hi, good morning. In the last meeting that I was invited to, we discussed, select person.
It's okay.
Okay.
What, I keep saying select man, so I don't.
Oh,
care.
okay,
You know,
thank you.
It's ingrained.
Had requested some sort of visual to really be able to see, you know, how we're talking about laying this out. So what I brought for you and what you have in front of you shows on the left-hand side are existing the village at 815 Main Street. And if you see that road that is just in front of the buildings on the left, that's actually our drive, one of our private drives. And that will be the main entrance onto the right, off to the right side, kind of into those trees to where 801 will be located. That is the main access. Now we need to have another access, which we do, which we'll be utilizing, but upgrading the drive that is already there. And you can actually see, we can kind of see it as it exists past the building. So there is, I want to call it blacktop, but that's not asphalt.
Macadam.
But it needs to be, of course, upgraded
And you've already gone through planning, zoning and everything, right?
yes,
So
everything.
all the plans are in place?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. Can I just ask, it's weirdo looking, but what is this?
That
Is
is,
it an old bog or is it a
no, it's
garden of
actually
cauliflower?
way back there. That's owned by the train.
Oh,
The train runs back
Right,
there
yeah.
on the angle.
yeah,
And a lot of those trees, I think this was taken before it was,
no, I'm talking, see about
oh,
the
that was,
square of,
yes.
it's a garden of some sort.
Yes, so this lot, what we've purchased was bigger.
Okay,
But the woman that lived in the house sold off just that back portion. In fact, I'm working with the person that owns that now to fill in a vacant or a not used swimming pool. But yes, so that is owned by someone else that lives in the house off to the right.
okay, that's, I was curious. So essentially you're going in like.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Now, there will still be the same access that there is already. Okay.
I went by there the other day. It looks really nice. You've done a nice job of cleaning up what I call the main older building, not the new stuff, but and those look really nice too. So
Thank you.
Okay,
thank you for,
Sandy, anything?
No,
No, Carl?
CPC has processed her payment request, which is outside of our scope, but I just wanted to let you know she submitted funding for CPC and it's been processed and paid.
Okay, and
I don't have anything at the moment, Jim.
okay, so for us, have you received a letter of funding from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, and for what amount?
A letter from,
Yeah, you know,
From
confirming
HLC?
that it's been approved and the project and how much funds they're gonna, and also,
yes and no. They-
okay, just, and have you received a letter of committal from the bank stating such? And also deed restriction language. So those are things I believe we would need as a town or a board of the town in order to process the paperwork forward. Just to know that all financing is in place. If people disagree here on the board, and that's for any project, as Mr. Boschman knows. Oh, so well.
So, and it is deeded in perpetuity as per the request.
801,
Yes.
right.
right.
So it's deed restricted in perpetuity,
Mhm.
not 815, right? There's two different projects
They're
here.
right, they're
Correct.
two different projects.
And Mr. Schultz had requested the deed and page and book, and you sent that, and I
Correct.
appreciate that. Did I forward that to you, Mr. Schultz?
Well, I have it, so
Yeah. I can't hear you.
I'll look for it. I don't remember seeing it. but I'll
Okay,
look.
Sandy has it, so I will forward that to you again. And what I do, just so the board knows, is all business that I do with the board, I do it through the website the town provides. So if there's ever, transition and everything, it should be there. But thank you. So, So things are moving along, Ms. Perkins?
Yes, they are. I was just writing that down. I also wanted to present the option of if the money was to be approved, the grant, that it go directly to the modular company. If that was something that worked easier for your books, I just wanted to put that out there.
It should go to them.
No, because you're the applicant.
You're the applicant, you have to get it.
Fine.
So I don't have any problem with the request personally and the project. I don't think I put on to vote, so.
But it was open and continuing, and you probably did before.
So I don't have any problem with the 60,000, but the conditions are basically what I stated on the deed restriction and the other thing. Funding from the state, showing a commitment from the bank that, because I had sizable amounts from the bank. And then, once you got that done, if the board approves the grant, we could release funds.
Okay.
Same with Mr. Bausch. So do we have any motion from the board to approve the request for $60,000
Yes, sir.
for the village of 801 Main Street, is it?
Yeah, 801 Villages.
801 Villages.
Is it-
Anything to be added there? You good there with that, Mr. Schultz?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Jim, do we have a completed application?
I-
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Okay. I've just got to go back to my notes.
You actually have two because we amended, so it would be the most recent.
Okay. I'll have to go back and look for it.
I can send that to you again. I thought I sent it, but if I didn't, my apologies. And Sandy has, it, right, Sandy?
yes,
The amended one
But
for
you have it
60.
for the trust or for CPC?
no
For
trust.
the trust,
Yeah,
Affordable Housing Trust for
Okay.
we
$60,000.
have the application, the request, the deed for the property, because it's different. And so, does anybody care to make a motion, or would you more discussion?
She was making the motion, but is it village or villages?
Its official name
Yes.
is Villages 801. It's an awful official name.
Well, it says village at 801 Main Street on our agenda, so it should be villages.
That is because that is the operating name.
Yeah, okay,
Which is?
which is,
We're going to be operating as the 801 Villages, and hang on, I'm so sorry.
What's on the application?
It is the proper
801
name.
Village LLC is on the application.
Okay.
So that's what it
Okay.
means.
Yes, the official.
So I make a motion that we approve a $60,000 payment to 801 Village LLC using our CPA funds.
I'll second that motion, and it is a grant, right?
Approve the
The
grant
grant, that was going to be my comment. It's not a payment, it's
Yeah,
a
it's a
grant.
Grant payment.
based on the conditions as discussed.
Mhm.
Previous funding, deed restriction. So do we have any, we have a second?
Yes.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion further now? Hearing none, can I get a vote? Mrs. Slavin,
Yes,
Ms. Whiteside,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
myself, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, now, moving on. Are we good? Hold on,
sorry,
go ahead.
just
Go ahead.
what do we now require before we can issue the funds?
Everything I
Bank
said.
commitment,
Okay,
letters from HLC,
Correct.
and that it be deeded in
Deed
perpetuity,
restriction in
and the deed
perpetuity.
restrictions. I think that was,
That was pretty much it.
okay, good.
Okay, but thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry for the stickler.
No, not at all. That's fine.
Mr. Bauschman, how we doing?
Not too bad.
Good.
Moving right along, hopefully.
Yeah.
We received funds from CPC over the weekend. We're going over to the bank today to pay the property off. And we put in a letter of request for the 50,000 from the trust here. I just sent Lynn an email earlier. So once you receive that letter of request, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, so.
Yeah, no, we just, Sandy had just mentioned it to me before the meeting, that we need to submit a letter of,
Okay.
We need an invoice.
an invoice, I'm sorry.
We need an invoice,
You need a request for payment.
who to pay, that type of thing, where to send the check and whatever. So once we have the invoice, Affordable Housing Trust will approve it, sending it to CPC that will do the final.
And,
No, we're using our own funds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. We do, okay, sorry, we're using our own funds for this 50,000, right? No, we're using our CPA funds.
I'll need to go and look at my notes.
I think we're using
Okay,
our,
I'm gonna-
I think we're using the 150,000 CPA funds for this.
Okay.
Yes, we voted on December 10th to use the 50K from the 150K CPA grant of, we voted 400 on December 10th.
Okay. So
You still need that invoice.
you have, and I'm assuming you have the W-9.
W-9 was
processed it.
submitted by, when CPC made the payment, the W-9 was part of that packet, so I don't need it again.
Okay. And once we have, now, I know that the Board of Selectmen and the Town Administrator signed off an agreement. What was that you signed with Mr. Boschman related to the project
That's the regulatory agreement from the state.
from the state, and you signed off?
That's
on
all
that?
signed off, the state signed off, that's,
And that states that the property be in perpetuity, deed restricted in perpetuity. So that is, would you consider that sufficient and to warrant and fulfill the request or of having a deed restriction on the property?
it is deed restricted.
That's what I'm,
It was,
It's already,
that's what it does.
yeah,
Okay, so that's checked off. Your financing is checked off, right?
yeah, we're
From the
good to
bank?
go.
And I think, have you got a letter of the commitment from the Executive Office of Housing Liberal Community, not commitment, but we're funding it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and have they released any funds?
No, town releases funds, then mass
Town
releases.
did, right?
I'm waiting on 50.
Right.
Once
Okay.
that's released, I got a meeting tomorrow with Mass Housing. Once those two funds are released from the town, their second release, and then the bank releases after the 3 grants are utilized.
I don't know, what's anybody's thoughts or on this at this point in time?
I would say, once we get our invoice request for payment, you process it and give it to me for CPC for processing, very similar to what we just did with the 56,000
56,000,
for Woodland Cove.
right, that was all completed and
Yeah, yeah,
occupied, and I understand
I
how,
haven't
I
heard-
understand how we process it through you, but I'm just saying, what's the opinion of the board?
I think he's done everything that he needs to do, and now we just need to follow the process, if that's what your question is.
Okay, are you willing to, and at this point in time,
Make that a motion of some
make a
sort.
motion? Yeah, and so, to,
Yeah.
to release the
Release the
fund,
grant, is that, it,
yeah.
yeah,
And then again,
subject to which all of those things are there anyway, right?
yeah, the only thing is that no other funds have been released
Yes, they have. I
except
just got a check
from
from
CPC, but I'm saying from the other two funding sources.
They won't release until the town, utilize the town's money first, then we utilize Mass, and then the bank kicks in. That's been the process right along.
Yeah, cause I mean, okay, So if we have a motion, do we have a motion on the table?
Make
Okay,
a,
go ahead.
make a motion, we release the $50,000 grant payment for 6 Chapel Lane from our CPA funds.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, can I get a vote? Mrs. Slavin,
Yes,
Ms. Whiteside,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes,
and Mr. Manish, yes. I will process that through. And, I'll work with Mrs. Slavin. It worked out well last time, I think. Thank you very much, Sandy. Thank you, Mr. Boschman.
Anytime, thank you,
Thank you.
sir. Appreciate everything.
Okay,
And I apologize for coughing. I have a little drip that is aggravating me constantly, so
wearing a mask, thank
I
you.
am wearing a
Thank
mask.
you.
That was Judy's suggestion.
That's okay.
I'm sitting next to her, you're not.
Ask Alan. He's laying next to it.
Okay, so, moving along, I think it's only 5 and 9, you get another hour and 20 minutes, Mrs. White. So,
It's, my car is the same way, I gotta tell you, I can't fix the clock in the car, and I've tried, I sat there with the, the book and everything, and I remember doing it in October and finally fooling the car into holding the time, it didn't do it.
hold
time.
this, turn that.
Yeah, it's like,
Open the
wanna
door,
kill
beep the
somebody.
horn. Okay. So I didn't bring the, assuming we're under open up to business, SHI looking forward, with the Rosebrook and Cranberry, puts us over the 10% threshold. So I think that's a positive thing, and then with the smaller projects, which are very nice for the town, the smaller projects, I think we're in good shape, much better shape than many other towns. But anybody wanna chirp in on that?
I think the Cranberry Manor one has been in the works for a couple of years that I recall, and their presentation, I don't remember whether it was here or to the select board, it was a good presentation, and it's all senior housing, which is fabulous. I know that with Littleton Drive is having trouble filling because our seniors don't make enough to qualify, but so
Need to
that's.
make $51,000 minimum.
Yeah, so that's a real issue, and I know that they are asking the state to see if they can come down from the 62 to 55
On the age,
Yeah, which is, definition of senior, any place else
how
is.
if they lower the percent income
I
requirement?
don't think they can, but I know they're working with the
Yeah,
state, so.
So, well, I think one of the reasons why Wareham is so popular for it is because we have such a high, because we're in the Boston market. And so the rental, the amounts of rent are high.
Mhm.
So that's why developers wanna come to Wareham, because if they go over to Dartmouth, New Bedford, they're like $500 or $400 a month lower
Mhm.
anyhow.
Mhm.
So it doesn't cost any more to build here than it does over there. Do you follow me? So that wiggle room is there, I'm
Oh,
pretty
yeah,
sure.
no, I understand that,
Yeah.
but in terms of their financing stacks, they have to go through all sorts of hoops, so,
They
yeah.
do what they
Eh,
have to.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, just one moment, Mr. Loshman. And that's similar to the new proposal at Rosebrook. They're proposing only 25% affordable. And affordable what rate? 80%? They did mention maybe staggering another, 30 or 40 or 50, but 80% for, what was this stat that Katie Lacy gave us? Was it $140,000 is is affordable for a family of 4 in Wareham, because we're in the Boston market.
It's crazy.
So, I mean, anyhow, go ahead, Mr. Boschman, you were gonna say something. I didn't-
They changed the market, it's a SA FMRs. So if you look that up, it's pretty consistent all around us.
Okay,
Look at that.
SM what?
SA FMRs.
SA,
Yeah, pull that up when you get a minute.
because it's still listed as subsidized housing inventory with the state.
Correct, but that's the rent I'm talking about. So the rents came down. If you
Oh,
look at that.
Oh,
And like
How- how
Wareham was different than Marion was different than New
Correct.
Bedford. But if you look at that performer, they're all pretty consistent. They brought them down
I will
because
look
it's a
at that.
small area.
What they brought us down,
It brought everybody down.
okay, so
Take a
we're,
look at it.
I
It's-
will.
It's good, good information there.
I appreciate that, tell you the truth.
And I know, I've heard, the board say many a times that the rents are high, they are high. But with this kicked it down quite a bit.
Yeah, and I,
But it's
Big-
consistent around us, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Marion's equivalent to us, Freetown's equivalent in that now, Rochester, Bourne. Take a look at the,
yeah, I do. And I look at the HUD guidelines and whatnot a lot. And
And
there's
that's HUD.
still the discrepancy because of the market, but it may have changed more recently. And I also, because I'm on the housing authority, I review the warrants and rents on MRBPs and whatnot. So I see what portion the tenant pays and
well, that,
town,
that's gonna
what
vary
the town
with
pays and
tenant
what the,
taking-
what the totals are.
Right, but what the tenant pays is gonna vary on
Correct,
your income,
correct.
income versus hers versus mine.
But I'm-
Everyone's
No,
individualized.
no, I'm just saying I see that. So I kind of have an idea. Kind of.
can
I
help you with
stress that. But thank you, I'm gonna look that up. SMFMR. SA, okay, I'm glad.
Small area,
Small,
fair
oh,
market
small area.
rents.
You're doing your homework. Thank you. You have to, I guess, being someone who's developing in that area. All right, so we knocked that off on the SHI. I just wanted to talk about it.
So if we have made our 10%, can't we make a claim, can't the town make a claim?
You can't do that until the comprehensive permits are issued
Oh.
for both of those.
yeah.
Oh,
And like when Steve pulls his comprehensive permit, the town can then request to have them added in.
okay.
And the same thing with the village at 801. That's when you can first do it. Some of these large projects though, especially the large ones. I mean, they got the comprehensive permit in 2018, but they didn't start building till 2022. Your time frame for them to still be included within the SHI evaporates, it goes away. And so those numbers would come off your SHI. You have only so many years between the issuance of the comprehensive permit, the actual construction and occupancy for them to continue to stay on the SHI list.
Can they come off and then go back on?
Yes, they can.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. It's weird, there's all
Yeah,
these,
no, I just was curious because that would
Yeah.
be, I mean, that's just outrageous, particularly with COVID,
it's,
that would just
yeah,
be
and so then you
stupid.
have to, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay.
I think they go on the SHI when the occupancy permits are issued.
But we have to request it. No,
We have to send a letter,
yeah.
yeah,
So we can initially request it when the comprehensive permit is issued.
Mhm.
And then you can do it later when the occupancy permits are issued. But if you miss the window at first, you have to wait. The state has all these little guidelines. That if you don't do it within this time frame, you gotta wait.
Can I ask you a question about your other hat, on the other?
You may.
Yeah, so are you worried about state funding to the housing authority? Are you concerned that, well, that's basically the
Well-
question, because, the need continues to grow. And if,
We're funded,
through the state,
well, rents pay probably 75 to probably 90% of the operational costs.
Okay,
The state subsidizes us based upon our revenues and what we have for reserves. And so, and that's not counting special projects that the state might give us. That's just for operational. So they did, I will say the administration came up with a long-term plan of a percentage each year.
Okay.
That we can say, okay, we're gonna be good for that, and that includes everything in our, which we're having a meeting on tomorrow, and then I think also on the 19th for our annual plan to be submitted and capital improvement plan and whatnot. And I think I wanna say $42,000 or was from the state for operations. The rest of it's rents. And projects are separately funded, big projects. And then we have projects under X amount that we can do on our own.
but,
And as far as the funding, they said you're gonna give it, 3%,
Yeah.
or whatever. Whether they appropriate it each year,
okay,
it's it's the same with the town. How much are we gonna get? How much is the housing and livable communities gonna get?
Yeah.
So,
okay,
and I'm not terribly worried, but
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so you think your assessment of having been on that is that we're going in the right direction, that things are moving along the way they should be, the way that you would hope that they would, to support the residents.
well, I mean, that's true. I mean, the housing authority is like a true affordable
Right,
rent.
Right.
Based upon income, and it's a third of your income. So if you're only getting $1,500 a month, you're paying $500 a month.
Mhm.
That's including heat and hot water. I don't know about if there's a basic cable. I think you have to pay for anything extra than that. So that's truly affordable,
Okay.
And some of the programs that operate under that, voucher programs, are also affordable because they're, again, based upon the income of the individuals.
So my question is sort of an obvious one. Because it truly is affordable housing, why wouldn't you, that entity, be looking for capital expansion in terms of additional units?
State is not interested in providing additional subsidized,
But the state
Funds.
also tells us that we're an MBTA, community, and that we have to have X blah, blah, blah. And we have the ability to do that.
right.
So why isn't this group talking to this group, and I don't really expect that
they
you
would
can
rather-
answer that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they would rather help fund a private development and, which would be self-sufficient, than to fund a housing authority for new additional, housing, and then have it under the, I think it's 667 chapter, and be responsible for subsidizing the ongoing housing. And that's what happens. We like, some towns get big subsidies, some get none, it depending on how efficiently they operate and the income's coming in from the rents.
Got it?
It's kind of.
No, I get it.
it's-
It's
it's-
just, to me, it flies in the face of common sense. If your entity, the housing authority, can actually provide housing that actually fits our market requirement, and why would the state not provide the municipalities or the entities, the municipal entities, if you will, that money as opposed to private entities? To me, that doesn't make sense, because it's taxpayer money any way you look at it. You see what I'm
Right.
saying?
No, I understand. I think it's just the ongoing responsibility of administration and financing related to the authority.
Okay,
But I agree with what you're saying. It's the best
It's the best it's the best bang for the buck. Yeah, sorry.
Now,
Mrs. Slavin.
does the housing authority have other land around town other than the two sites that you maintain two sites, right?
We have two sites in Agawam Village and Redwood Village. And then the new one that was funded through the town, which is still at 57 Sandwich Road, but is going under the name of Oakdale Village or Oakdale Terrace.
Where is that?
Where-
It's
Is
the
that
4 units.
Those are the
Oh.
four
Is that the
units
one
we
at the
see on
top?
Sandwich
Those are
Road.
not under the the state subsidized 667.
Have they
It's a
inclu-
very
Have they
interesting.
included in our SHI?
It has not been as of yet. So I think you need to do those four. And say we need a deed restriction in perpetuity on them.
Yeah.
And you know what, there's,
I thought the
I'm-
deed was done.
is it deed restricted? And in perpetuity?
I'm asking for
I'd have
your
to,
other hat, because
you know what, for me, I will have to go to the Registry of Deeds and look it up. Because that's the only way I can really tell you for sure.
because
Do you know what I'm saying?
CPC paid you a lot, paid the money.
Didn't pay it, have you dispersed all the funds?
Your last $273 was spent.
So it's, what was it,
Your
600?
zero, yeah, I forgot what it was, but
Okay.
it's all used.
Well, the project still needs to be completed. There are
Okay.
some funds in an account for that. But that's another thing. We should talk. We should sidebar,
Now,
okay?
Did you get an answer in your HOR question as to why they're not on our SHI list?
Which one?
The HOR, the home improvement?
No, Mr. Darrow is going to get back to me on that.
Okay, I know you asked the question as to why it was not
And,
being recorded.
specifically, because
And yes,
he's
he was,
going to give me.
yes, he was
the-
gonna get back to you.
Right.
Yep.
In
Thank you for
'Cause you
asking that
need to
question. Right,
lien.
yeah,
the property.
Right.
On the deed anyhow.
right,
So if you restrict it for 15 years or you lien it for 15 years,
right,
one would go on the SHI, the other wouldn't.
right,
As long as it
So-
stays in that person's name.
right.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what happened to me on the 17th when I first bought that. It was on it, and we had to release it, get it released.
You can request for it released or sell it under the same premise in which you've had it and transfer it as an affordable unit. Otherwise, when you sell it, there's a difference in the payback. That's where you'd pay back the grant.
Correct.
So, in the same thing with the lien, if you sell it, you have to pay back the difference of the grant. And it's 1/15 a year that you're given, right?
Right.
So, it's, if we did 5 a year, geez, after 5 years, it's totally, you have what, 24 or 25 you'd have? Then they'd fall off and you did 5 more, you don't have those extra. Anyhow, thank you. Moving forward, discussion of grant of a percent income. I'm gonna skip over that, although, I'm just quickly, because the 80% income is so high here, should we reduce the amount when we consider it, funding that no more than 50% income or 40%? It's like when we did with Woodland Cove. Kind of stuck in
We did
the,
that already.
I know we did, but
At the
it
beginning of this term.
just review,
You said
after-
you'd prefer a preference of 60%
well,
of the
I'm
AMI would get the preference.
right,
is what
but if
you
you
said.
look at it, it can be lower. Also, assets, people can have considerable assets that aren't counted in what
It's not
they're.
income because it's,
Right.
Yeah.
So, but they could well afford, at least looking at what they have to report, at least in my eyes, that they could afford to fund their own first month's rent.
Well,
You-
so if you take the person who's lived in the house for, 40 years and it belonged to her father before her and the grandfather built it before, that kind of thing. So on paper, that asset might look big and be taxed big. But the fact of the matter is that if she were to sell it or he were to sell it,
whatever, yeah.
the capital gain, it's not a capital gain, but the gain from the sale of the capital item then goes into, it's not income, it's, you can't,
Right,
I understand where you're going with it, but I don't know how you transfer it fairly. You know what I'm saying?
right, and I'm more talking about the larger, grants that we did.
Yeah.
After looking at, just considering incomes.
Yeah.
And knowing that people with much less, maybe aren't getting the opportunity, or a lot of people coming from other towns, making the 80% or the 60% limits. It's just food for thought, that's all. Especially when I reviewed, the list of income assets, and it's like, wow. But just food for thought.
Yeah. One of the interesting things, just slightly different than that, are people who own their mobile home, and the parks that have been self-bought,
Hmm,
okay, Mr. Costa from, which one that was?
yeah,
Yeah. Apparently, those rents have gone way above and beyond what they thought, and of course, they were supported by mass housing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was a huge
State fund, yeah.
state funding in there. But in the parks that are owned by, name the biggies.
private development.
Yeah, the private developers, they're being driven out too. It's just,
Yeah.
it's an interesting,
Well, the
problem.
homeowner's fee, right? I mean, you're
Yeah.
paying
yeah,
Renting the land, right?
Hmm.
They're renting the land.
yeah, or if, in the case of, what was that, Great Hill? So it became it wasn't Royal Cross, it was Great Hill,
it was
wasn't it?
Great Hill, I think, yeah.
So they bought it as a community, so
Yeah.
each person owns a portion of but you still have to pay an association fee in order to cover all the
Right,
costs of
but
maintenance and
apparently,
whatnot.
because we get letters, complaining that the entity that bought itself has now become unaffordable. It's just,
So yeah, but it's a board that votes upon, the increases, so,
right,
I mean, same like we don't like taxes.
no, I know, I'm just,
Yeah,
it's.
it's not
It's
cheap.
all it's everything, it's not just, bricks and mortar houses, it's
Yeah.
wheeled houses. which
And
aren't
it's a
wheeled.
form of, a roof over your head.
Yeah,
All right, I guess we can just move things, there's nothing really, anything under 48 hours for anybody?
I have a question.
A question from Mrs. Slavin,
Woodland Cove,
yes.
have they started applying the $1,000 per unit?
I haven't heard from them. Were the funds dispersed from the town? I haven't heard from them, so
Okay,
I'm
I'll put
assuming
it this
yes,
way.
but I don't know.
We had three payments being submitted at the same time. 2 of them have been received. It's hard to believe that Woodland Cove didn't get it.
you got all that paperwork done.
Oh, it was done, submitted,
Yeah,
Mrs. Slavin
yeah,
received it,
everybody
she
got it,
processed
yeah.
it, snap, and it went,
I
and it
haven't
all
heard-
been approved by everybody.
I have not heard from accounting saying there was a problem with the 56,000.
No, everything was approved, and we even got a notice
So-
from Judith Lazan that said, I approve.
Yeah, finally, she
Yeah.
No,
sent
no,
it, yeah. But did the money go?
Did the money
Yeah.
go to them? And if they have it, what have they done with it?
So we want a Woodland Cove report on funds, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Report of disbursement, or not disbursement, but what would the word be?
Crediting.
Yeah, the
Credit.
credits, yeah.
Okay,
Application to rent, or
Credit
however you might want to put it,
to
but
tenants,
I had not heard that it hadn't happened.
okay,
So that makes me thinking
for rent.
I'm not gonna use the A word.
No, we'll get that, otherwise it's a poop show. Any other comments or discussion? Carl? You good?
You're muted.
That's all right, I
We
read
read
his
lips.
lips. Mr. Boschman, how about you?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Thank you, Carl.
We're gonna start moving forward, with 15 Gibbs and 20, now that we're, secured on this.
Okay, and you,
Our next move is to get in front of the selectmen and get a letter of support, like we received a letter of support from this board.
you've already gotten both, right? For 15 and
I got
20?
a letter of support from the trust for both projects.
Okay, good.
We're gonna, hopefully go in front of the selectmen soon. And, get a
Moving
letter of
right
support
along.
for those.
Good, thank you.
Really, thank you guys for everything. It's been a long journey.
Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Made.
We get a-
Seconded.
Okay, it's non-debatable. Carl? Yes. Sandy?
Yes,
Yes.
Myself, yes. Thank you. It's
time,
10:21 there. I don't know what my computer says. What do you got, Carl?
19. Mine says 10:19. My
Okay,
clock says
10:19. It's not 9:20. Thank you.
Thank you.
Interesting.
say hi to Denise.
I'll try to